One June afternoon in 2020, the Schuylkill River in Philadelphia was a peaceful place, with boats drifting by and the wind rustling through the trees. But the calm was quickly shattered by an urgent 911 call. The caller reported that, beneath the murky water, something had washed up on the shore. From a distance, it didn't look like a log or a piece of trash. The shape clearly suggested the silhouette of a human body. In an instant, both the rescue team and the local police were dispatched to the scene. The sound of sirens blared, tearing apart the summer afternoon. The appearance of fire trucks, police cars, and officers in special uniforms turned this normally quiet area into a center of curiosity for passers-by. Few people expected that before this incident, Dominique Rem'mie Fells, or often called by her friends by the intimate name Rem'mie, was still a young woman with a life full of aspirations. She loved art, often painted, wrote poetry, and did not hesitate to express her personality. Rem'mie walked into a room with a bright smile, leaving behind a feeling of warmth and closeness. Yet that afternoon, as the sun dyed the Schuylkill River a golden yellow, the unusual sighting sowed an unsettling feeling in everyone's hearts. Who was the first to notice and call 911? What exactly happened before the body washed ashore, quietly in the water that was so familiar to the city's residents? These questions will remain unanswered throughout the investigation. No one knew that this would be the beginning of one of the most shocking cases in Philadelphia in 2020. On the afternoon of June 5, 2020, the final hours of Dominique Rem'mie Fells' life were reconstructed through surveillance camera footage and scattered accounts from residents around the apartment complex. That afternoon, Dominique appeared at the apartment of Akhenaton Jones, a man little known in the community, living a reclusive life, but later became the central figure in the case. The hallway camera shows Dominique entering the apartment complex with a normal appearance, showing no signs of anxiety or alertness. She walked naturally, as if this was not her first time here. By early evening, some of the residents on the same floor had heard faint sounds of arguing coming from the Jones apartment. The noises grew louder, then quieter, then died away as if something had been deliberately silenced. Yet no one approached, nor did anyone call the police, as everyone assumed it was just a passing personal dispute. After that moment, Dominique was never seen again. There were no images of her leaving the apartment, no traces in the hallway, no swipe of her access card. Social media, where Dominique regularly updates her status, is also completely silent. Friends have not received any messages or calls. Family has no sign that Dominique is safe. The sudden silence, in the context of her having just entered Jones' apartment, makes the void even more terrifying. Night has fallen, the lights from the apartment are still shining as usual, but behind the closed door is a story that no one knows clearly. There are no eyewitnesses, no explanation. And from the next morning, all that remained was the complete disappearance of Dominique, an unannounced disappearance, leaving friends, family, and the entire community tormented with the question: what really happened inside those four walls, and why did no one intervene before it was too late? On the afternoon of June 8, 2020, the usual tranquility of the Schuylkill River in Philadelphia was suddenly shattered by a horrifying discovery. A group of people walking along the riverside trail suddenly noticed a strange object stuck in the floating debris. At first, they thought it was just a large piece of wood or trash that had been washed up. But as they got closer, the outline became clearer. It was a human body. The sight left everyone speechless. One of them immediately called 911 in a panic. Minutes later, the sirens of police cars and ambulances echoed throughout the quiet area. Authorities quickly arrived, cordoned off the riverside area, and deployed a water rescue team to bring the body to shore. When the body was recovered, silence reigned. The condition of the body and the unusual signs made the police immediately realize that this could not be a drowning incident. There were no identification documents or personal belongings, but the body's distinctive features and body shape quickly suggested an identity. Within hours, the news spread throughout the local community. The identity was confirmed as Dominique Rem'mie Fells, the young woman who had been missing since the evening of June 5. For family and friends, the news was a shock that shattered the fragile hope that Dominique had simply gone off somewhere without a chance to contact her. The unanswered messages and unanswered phone calls were now the harsh reality. She was gone. On the banks of the Schuylkill River, a place that had been synonymous with the city's tranquility, the local community was in shock. The loss immediately raised a series of questions. What had really happened in the 3 days Dominique had been missing, and who was responsible for her departure? As soon as the body was recovered on the afternoon of June 8, 2020, field technicians cordoned off the riverside area and began the process of collecting evidence. The debris and moss covering the water made identification difficult, but the shape of the body and its external condition soon suggested that it could not have been a natural death. Dominique's body was quickly taken to the Philadelphia City Medical Examiner's office, where doctors determined that the body had been in the water for approximately 3 days, which coincided with the time she disappeared. Although the river environment washed away many traces, experts still noted a series of serious injuries. Severe trauma to the head and body, along with obvious injuries from a violent collision. This evidence completely ruled out the possibility of ordinary drowning. The forensic report indicated that the cause of death was blunt force trauma before the body was thrown into the river. More importantly, the results of the soft tissue analysis and the condition of the body allowed for an estimated time of death to fall on the evening of June 5, 2020, the exact moment when Dominique was last seen on camera entering Akhenaton Jones' apartment, and then not seen again. In parallel with the autopsy, investigators expanded their search warrant to Jones' apartment. Upon entering, forensic officers noticed several unusual features: scrubbing marks on the floor but still showing small traces of blood, faint traces of cleaning solution on the walls, and several areas of disarray that were different from the usual living arrangements. In one corner of the room, shoe prints on the floor were determined to be the right size for Jones. In particular, in the living room, the police seized a large knife with a suspicious stain on the blade. Next to it, many objects were displaced. The tables and chairs were not in the right place, as if there had been a fierce struggle. All these details, when compared with the forensic results, gradually fit into a picture. Jones' apartment was the scene of the murder, and from here, the investigation focused entirely on this mysterious man. Once the forensic report determined that the case was a homicide, the entire attention of the investigating agency turned to Akhenaton Jones. His sudden disappearance could not be considered a coincidence. The time when Dominique stopped communicating was also the time when Jones left his apartment. That apartment, the last place where Dominique was recorded on camera, was now abandoned. The doors were locked, the belongings were intact, but the owner was nowhere to be found. The personal phone was disconnected. The private car had disappeared from the familiar parking lot. Everything had the characteristics of a calculated escape. Investigators began to reconstruct Jones's journey. Carrier data showed that his phone had been pinging as he left Philadelphia, headed south, and then went completely silent. Traffic cameras and surveillance systems at several rest stops also helped reconstruct Jones's route, confirming that this was a getaway rather than a random departure. In the abandoned apartment, forensics found important evidence. Blood stains had seeped deep into the floor and were difficult to clean. DNA tests showed Dominique's DNA at multiple locations. In the closet, a pair of blood-stained shoes had been hastily hidden, apparently not in time to be disposed of. All of this reinforced the theory that the apartment was the scene of the crime. To better understand Akhenaten Jones, police interviewed friends and acquaintances. They described Jones as having a history of frequent outbursts and displaying aggressive behavior in personal relationships, but never before facing trial. These details were not enough to convict, but when put into context, they added up to a portrait of a dangerous suspect. With the pieces of the puzzle finally falling into place, authorities took the decisive step, issuing a nationwide arrest warrant for Akhenaten Jones. His name and photo were widely publicized in the media, along with a call for anyone with information to contact the police immediately. The manhunt lasted for months, crossing state borders, until Jones was discovered in Los Angeles. On November 13, 2020, the police successfully arrested Dominique Rem'mie, ending his journey of hiding. This event not only ended a long manhunt, but also marked an important turning point. From now on, the suspect officially had to face the legal system, and the path to justice for Dominique Rem'mie began to become clearer than ever. The trial of Akhenaten Jones took place in Philadelphia and quickly attracted widespread attention. The courtroom was packed with press, community representatives, and people who knew Dominique. The atmosphere was tense as each side tried to make their final arguments in the sensational case. Prosecutors presented a carefully prepared investigative dossier, traces of Dominique's DNA in the apartment, bloody shoes hastily hidden in a closet, a crime scene with unusual cleaning details, and most importantly, Jones's months-long escape. They asserted, if this was just an accident, why would the suspect disappear, leave everything behind, and move across several states to hide? The defense attorneys tried to counterattack, suggesting that a spontaneous conflict had spiraled out of control, leading to an unintended tragedy. However, this defense was quickly refuted by forensic experts. The autopsy report made it clear that Dominique's injuries were not consistent with an accident, but rather showed intentional violence. The arguments were lengthy, and every little detail was dissected before the jury. Finally, the picture became clear. Akhenaten Jones was not only responsible for Dominique's death, but had intentionally concealed it and then fled Philadelphia. In 2022, the court handed down the verdict: first-degree murder, life without parole. The sentence was considered severe, fully reflecting the nature of the case and the dangerousness of the defendant. The response from the LGBTQ+ community has been overwhelming. Human rights organizations and transgender advocacy groups have spoken out in the immediate aftermath of the verdict, seeing it as not only justice for Dominique Rem'mie, but also an affirmation that the lives of transgender women of color deserve to be protected. On the streets of Philadelphia, vigils, rainbow flags, and chants for justice have turned the verdict into a symbolic moment, both a closure to the case and a wake-up call for society. Dominique Rem'mie ended her life journey at the age of 27, an age when she should have been passionately pursuing art, finding simple joys and shaping a long future ahead. That departure was not only a personal loss for her family and friends, but also became a heavy silence for the community, especially transgender women of color, who always face many risks in society. The case ended with a harsh sentence for the perpetrator, but behind the courtroom doors, its echoes still resonate into larger questions. Have we truly created a safe and fair society for all? How many more tragedies could have been prevented if compassion and protection had been more present? Dominique's story is not only a reminder of a heartbreaking murder, but also a reflection on the injustices that the vulnerable community is suffering. And the final message left behind lies not only in the sentence, but in the actions of each person. Justice is not only built by the law, but also by empathy, respect, and humane choices in daily life. That is the real foundation so that tragedies like Dominique's will not happen again. Do you think justice and safety in the community are enough, or do we need more severe sentences? Share your thoughts in the comments section. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel to spread awareness and justice.